project, you're going to be creating like I said, a logo that'll look something like this. And we'll talk more about logos. It's Cafe Lemon. They'll give you a picture of a lemon and you have to vectorize it. You have to take letters and you have to manipulate those letters. We'll also take it and rather than doing a full color that shows CMYK, all the different values, you'll also make one that shows just two color, just black and just one color, and also one that shows just one color, just black by itself. This is the way logos are usually made out. In addition to this, we'll be placing your lemon onto some stationery. So you'll make a little stationery setup and also a little envelope along with this. They give you some of these resources. The rest of these we're going to make. If I was to go and open up, so this is the Stationery Illustrator file, I'm going to get an error in doing this. And this is a common error, especially if you're working on multiple computers. Let's see. Well, here's my error right here. It's saying I'm missing a font. Right now, I don't have the font. It says ATC Coral Normal. If you're working on a computer and there are fonts loaded specifically on your computer, and this is the same if you're working on your personal computer or any of the other computers in the lab or any other computer. If your computer doesn't have a font, then Illustrator doesn't really know how to display it. What it's going to do is it's going to try to interpret it as best as possible. Usually there's like a default go-to font that it'll put everything into. And it'll say, hey, we don't have it. Do you want to try to find it? Do you want to download it, or do you want to see if it's maybe installed somewhere else on the computer? I'm going to hit close, and let me show you what it looks like in Illustrator if you don't have a font. If I zoom in, notice I've got this type right here. It's covered in a pink bounding box. The pink is simply saying that that font is not on here. If I chose my type tool and tried to select it, I can see it's giving me ATC Coral, but it's giving me a little indicator that it's not actually there. It's just interpreting it the best as possible. Actually, I know that this is Myriad Pro, which is Apple's default font. So what I need to do is I need to be able to install the font that's necessary. So I'll close it out. Let's go back to normal. If you go to the publisher's website, so here is the Against the Clock website. Hopefully y'all have made an account already. You can go to downloads, and one of the things you can download, and we're using the CC, Creative Cloud titles, is all of the open type fonts. By the way, open type, if you ever download a font, sometimes you'll hear open type or true type. Those are just different font formats. Adobe comes up with their own file format and they call it open type. And so that's what we'll be working with. ATC is Against the Clock, your book itself. I've already downloaded mine. And here they are. I've got them on my desktop. You'll need to do the same thing. So I downloaded it as a zip file. Here it is as the regular file. And inside of here I've got about 6 or 7 different fonts that I'll work with, each one with their names. Do y'all remember the name of the font that I needed? ATC Coral. So I'll open up, here's ATC Coral, here it is in both italic and also normal. I can select multiple ones, or I can do this one at a time. But to install a font, simply double click on the font, and it's going to open up a program called Font Book. Font Book is Apple's kind of font managing system. And it'll show you what it looks like, and I can preview it. All that looks good. We'll just hit Install Font. And if there's no problems, it'll install it. We'll continue. If there's no problems, we'll install it, and you can see all of the other little fonts that are installed on here as well. And you get an idea of what it will look like. Let's do the same thing for the other one. Let's do this for this one. I can select all of them, double click, do Install Font. It installed just fine. Every once in a while, especially if you go to the shady free font websites and you download a font that you don't really know who made it or where it came from, you can download a font that can mess your computer up, and it'll give you an error, or it'll say there's something corrupted about it. I'm going to go ahead and try to reinstall a font that's already on here. Let me show you the error that it will look like. I've already installed the bold italic version of this one. But if I do it again, it says, hey, there's a problem. The problems have been found with this font. In this case, it's a minor problem. The minor problem being that I already have it on my computer. If it was a major problem, if it was something that gave you like a bug or a virus, it would also show up on here. And I can choose to not install those fonts as well. Pretty cool? It's just that easy to install your fonts on a Macintosh. If you want, especially if you're starting this final project, go ahead and log into the publisher's website, download and install all the fonts on your computer. If somebody else has been working on your computer, they may already be installed. So if that happens, you don't have to reinstall them from there. Any questions on that? All cool? Okay. Let me show you a bonus exercise and show you how this can help you with your drawing practice. Under Project 3, by the way, all of the Illustrator projects are due this Thursday by midnight, so you've got that time to turn it in. Same is true for your Illustrator tests, Test 1, 2, and 3. But at the bottom, I'm giving you a bonus project called Skull Trace. And at the very bottom, you can download this image of a Mexican sugar skull. Looks like this. What I want you guys to do is download this image and redraw it and colorize it. Vectorize the whole thing. But I'm going to show you the trick to working with Illustrator. So I'm going to make a new document. Very, very quickly. It doesn't have to be anything. We can keep it letter size. And we'll place my skull into here. There it is. Place. It's on my desktop. There's my skull. And remember, I'm going to make this a template layer so I can trace off, and we'll place it down there. And there it is, placed onto my file. Remember, in my layers, my template is on 1. I'm going to be doing my drawing on layer 1 by itself. The tool I'm going to use is just the pen tool. So let's zoom in. We'll take this one thing at a time. The circles, well, those are easy, right? That's just a regular circle tool. You can draw those and recreate those. Hey, notice that it's the same thing on one side and the other. So actually, if you draw one side, you can copy it over to the other side. Here's a common problem that I see first-time Illustrator users do. They want to do something like this curved surface. But they'll go in, let me change my stroke color to red, and they'll make the curved surface by clicking multiple times and curving it around this way. How many of y'all have fallen into that trap? It's okay, you're in a safe environment. And it kind of winds up looking like this. Now if I zoom out, that would be okay, but what I'm really wanting to do is make a true curve from here. What do I need to make a true curve in Vector? What are they called? What are my little handles called? Bezier handles. I need my Bezier handles. The downside is when you click and drag, you get your Bezier, you really don't know where those Bezier handles are going to end up. And so it's kind of a bit of a guessing game to know how it will look. Then I have to go back in and clean it up. Big bit of a mess. Here's Mr. Ivy's foolproof method for knowing where to click. Y'all look on overhead up here. Think of a face of a clock, okay? Clocks, you got 12, 3, 6, and 9, all the different edges. If you've got a shape, complex shape, think of the clock as moving along the edge of that shape. Wherever it touches the 12, 3, 6, and 9 face of the clock, that's where a point should go, within reason. Now, we're going to fudge on this a little bit. So, think of it as being right here. If I've got a clock up at the top, it's touching right at the 6 o'clock, right? And as I move around, touching at the 9 o'clock. Keep moving around, 12 o'clock, 9. Y'all pick up on that? Does that make sense? So I'm using actually very few points as I move around. And you can see exactly where it would be on this particular object. That's the first part. So let's apply it to the skull that we have here. If I'm working on his eye socket and I need to place a point, I'll start right here. So this will be my starting point. As I move around, you tell me where my next point should be. 12, 3, 6, and 9. Right there. I'm going to click, I've got my point. What do I need to press to turn this into a curved point? What can I hold down? Option. Got my option button. I can click on that line and move it into place. Like I said, it won't be 100%, but it'll be pretty close. You tell me the next time I should make a point. You tell me the next time I should make a point.
Right there.
Right about there? Good enough. Hold down Option, and I can drag into there. You tell me the next time I should make a point. Right about there, yeah. There's 12 o'clock. Drag it into point. Right about there. Click and drag. You see how quickly I can build this out? Like I said, I can always go back and redo it right about there. And then I bet I can go all the way back to my starting point, hold down Option, and re-drag it in that way. Shift X will fill it in. Just that few points allowed me to draw that off. Pretty cool? This will work for almost anything that you need to create, even the complex one, like above his eyebrow. Give yourself a starting point. Now I am going to fudge. I'm going to say right about there, even though it's right, not exactly on a 9 or a 12. I've done this enough to know what to look for. So there's my line. Whoop, swap it out. Go all the way up to here. Click. Uh-oh. Let's reconnect. Start. Ending point. Click and drag. Here it is down here. Don't have to move that one much. Keep going around. There's the top of this point. Click and drag. Option. Click and drag around for this one. Option. Pull it into place. Very, very quickly, very easily, I can take the guesswork out of exactly where to place those. Does that help anybody out in here? Everybody nods? Good. For the bonus project, I want you to trace off the entire skull, and I want you to colorize it. Don't just give me one color. Use any colors that you want. You can use gradients. You can add strokes around it. Y'all be creative. Be artistic with it. For this one, if you can turn it in by Thursday, I will give you 10 points on any test or quiz that you have. So if you've missed any major question or anything, you get 10 bonus points on any test for there. Sound fair? Okay, let's jump in. I want to show you what you'll start on for this next project because it is a little bit involved. They will give you a lemon, and we got to vectorize this lemon. We're going to use a gradient map in order to do this. Let's close out my sugar skull. Don't save. I'm going to make my new document. We've worked with gradients before. This is the way it should look once you've finished out. These gradients are a different way of thinking about the colors you create. Now if I make a circle, I can fill that circle with a solid color like black. I can give it a linear gradient, linear meaning it goes from one side to the other, and I can change up the angle. Or I could do a radial gradient, which goes from a center point outward. These are more dynamic in that I'm not just moving from one edge to another, I'm actually moving from one little quadrant to another. And I'm changing my colors based up on that. So what I need to do first is actually get my outline of the lemon. Let's place it into here. File. I'm going to do it the quick way. I'm going to grab my lemon JPEG, just drag it into my Illustrator file. Now when I do this, it does place it in here, but in my layers I don't have my tracing layer. So I'm just going to lock that one down and make a new layer on top of that. Let's zoom in. I'm going to go quickly and trace off my lemon. Hey, I can use my new drawing technique. I'm going to give myself a red line so I can see it. Click and drag. Go up to here, click and drag. Oh, let's do one there. I'm going to go quick. Now I've got my lemon. Cool? Okay. Lemon is created. To make a gradient mesh, here's where we're going to find this. We'll go up to Object, down to Create Gradient Mesh. A dialog box will come up. I'm going to turn on Preview so I can see what it looks like. Now, depending on how you drew your lemon, yours is going to look a little bit different from what it looks like in the book. And the difference isn't going to be major. It's just going to be where these lines fall. But what Illustrator is doing is it's making a pathed outline, left to right, top to bottom, that tends to follow the contour of the outer edges of your shape. The more rows I create, so I can increase the number of rows, increase the number of columns, the more detail I have, the more complex it'll be. So I'm actually going to keep mine relatively small. We'll do a 5 by 5. Everything else we'll keep the same. Don't worry about the appearance. We'll say okay to this. Now here comes the fun part. A gradient mesh, I can actually tell Illustrator where to place individual colors. Right now everything is white, and as a matter of fact, if I change my fill color to, we'll do red, the whole thing changes to red. Actually, let's make it something we can see. There's blue. Whew, that red makes my eyes hurt. Let's do red. Nope, blue. Okay. If I use my direct selection tool, direct selection will allow me to click on either individual points or individual parts. Here's the fun part. I can actually click on, let's say, this little quadrant here. Got it selected, and I can choose another swatch. If I wanted it to be red, we'll click on red. There we go. And now it's filled in that area. Do you see how it's gradiating? It's going from one quadrant and actually blending into the other areas. So if I chose this quadrant, I can continue filling it in with different things. Obviously, it's dominating one area over the other. Chose this quadrant, make it lime. This one can be brown. You can really mess this whole thing up. In addition to selecting the quadrants, I can also click on individual points. So that one right there in the middle. If I don't want it to fill up so much area, click on the middle. Now I can choose yellow, and that single point will gradiate from there. That single point can gradiate from this one. And so this is the essence of working with a mesh. You're telling it exactly where you want the gradient to be placed in there. That actually looks kind of funky. I can move these points around, so if I wanted it to be a little bit more or less moved in, I can do something like this as well and actually change up where it's at. We're not going to get that complicated. We're going to keep it fairly simple. What I want to do is I want to give it the exact colors wherever it falls on my lemon to fall on the points from here. But I've got an issue. Let's turn this lemon back into a yellow lemon. Select all of them. Now it's just totally yellow. To pick up that exact color, because you notice that's a darker yellow and it's going to get a lighter yellow, the tool we're going to use is my eyedropper tool. Think of an eyedropper, especially if you ever worked in a science lab, you can pick up individual colors, individual little spots. I can click on it individually, and you can see my fill color has turned to that shade of brown. Click over here, it gets lighter. So wherever I click, I can actually pick up that particular color. What I want to do is I want to choose my direct selection tool, click on the point that I want, so that point there corresponds to about right here. We'll get my eyedropper and pick it up. You see what happens? Fills it in. Direct selection, click on it, eyedropper, click again. That's going to be very slow and tedious, and it's actually kind of difficult to know exactly where it's at. I'm going to do it one more time, do one more different thing. Let's place this back on top of here. What would be helpful is if I can see both my points and my image below it. Here's how we're going to do that. In my layers icon, I've got my eyeballs. If I click on the eyeball, I can turn on and off. If I hold down Command, however, and click on the eyeball, check out what it looks like now. I can still see it, but I've gone into an outline mode, a wireframe kind of mode. Now I can see the wireframe from here. I can click on individual points, and I can see the colors that are below. Have I lost everybody? That's the basics of it. Now I can choose direct selection, click on one point, eyedropper, and click near that point. Here's another little tip. If I hold down the Command key, I can swap back and forth between my eyedropper and my direct selection tool. So eyedropper, select, and click on it. Select it, go back, click on it. All I'm doing, it doesn't look like I'm doing much, is selecting points and then selecting colors next to it. Why can't I see the colors that I'm changing? Because it's in I hear it. I hear it. Outline mode. Let's go back into normal mode. Hold down Command and click. Now I'm back into normal mode. Now this is what my lemon is looking like. It's starting to pick up a lot of colors. So what you're going to do is simply select each one of the points and use your eyedropper to pick up a color that's near it. As soon as you get all of them, you go back to your lemon, it will start to look a lot more like an actual vectorized lemon. Pretty cool? Just that simple from that. Once you're finished, it should look closer to that. From then, you'll move in and you actually start manipulating the letters and the text from there. Any questions on this project? I want to give you all plenty of time to work on it. Okay, then I'll turn your computers back over to y'all.